the Monster Mash.
The Monster Mash.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle, and welcome to our relaxing summer schedule where we take a look at small vehicles and playsets. And we're starting off with a MASH!
So meet the Swampmasher. This vehicle was released in 1988 with all original parts. And the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, does this still qualify as a small vehicle? I mean, in size, it's comparable to the Vamp Jeep, and I'd consider that to be medium-sized.
Well, for this one, I'm including it in our summer coverage because it didn't come with a driver.
Vamps and other such vehicles I can review when I talk about their drivers, but the poor Masher here needs a spotlight of its own, or it will never be featured. And no, I have no idea how I'm gonna handle large vehicles without drivers, like say the Hammer yet.
I don't tend to think that far ahead.
Anyway, the Swampmasher. It's certainly one of the more unique looking vehicles the G.I.Joe line got. And I gotta admit, I have a strange history with this thing. I never really liked it as a kid, and even later when I started collecting, I wasn't too fond of it. Hell, I took the guns of 2 of them to make custom HISS tanks. Why, yes, I will take every opportunity to show these babies off. But over the years, I've grown to like the weird little thing.
That's what she said.
Yeah, it's goofy looking, but I've come to think of it as having a certain charm. Anyway, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing. The first thing you notice, because it's the weirdest thing, are the wheels. There's 12 of them, 3 on each axle side. It certainly looks unique, and it even works when playing with it. The individual wheels rotate, and the block of 3 will rotate when going over uneven terrain. So it's a nice play feature that works well.
As far as the weaponry goes,
it has 2 purple missiles on the front that are in a launcher that can move 90 degrees, and a giant freaking Gatling gun that can move 360 degrees horizontally, and about 45 degrees upward, but only if the rear handlebar isn't in the way. The gun doesn't have a trigger at the back, so I think the driver is supposed to be the one operating it, but you can't put a figure on the back, there's 2 footbags there, and just pretend they are firing it. It's what I do with those HISS tank customs. Yeah, this gun is so freaking cool, I was thrilled I could put it to another use. The vehicle has a visible engine with a double exhaust pipe. The pipe does wobble a bit.
And I'm not sure if that's a bug or a feature,
since in the real world they would move a bit too if the engine was running. As far as the detailing goes, it's got a nice diamond patterned metal plate look in places, 1 headlight, and quite a bit of instruments in the driver's compartment. Plus, the big gun looks awesome. Well, unless you look underneath it where it's hollow. And the bottom of the entire vehicle shares that flaw, as there's no detailing whatsoever there. Even the engine is revealed to be a piece of hollow plastic. Yeah, the underside is a real disappointment.
And it shows that famous Hasbro cost cutting we know so well.
One thing I haven't talked about yet is the color scheme. It's dark purple and strange looking green. Now, this is a vehicle for the Joes, and that's a bit weird since I associate these colors more with the bad guys.
And I'm not talking about Cobra!
This looks a hell of a lot like the colors of the Constructicons from Transformers in nearly all their versions. No, I'm not counting Revenge of the Fallen. Nobody should count Revenge of the Fallen.
For anything!
It's just weird to see this on a G.I.Joe vehicle. A vehicle for the good guys, no less. Overall, the worst I can say about this toy is that it's an acquired taste. It's definitely understandable if you would dismiss the Swampmasher when you first see it, like I did. But it really is a neat little vehicle you should give a chance. And that was the only toy the Swampmasher ever got, both in the original line and in modern times.
That means it's time to talk about the, character? Not starting with the file card, because having a file card for a vehicle would be weird. Did you guys miss this little segment?
Before we get to the packaging, let's take a look at all the other media. I couldn't find evidence of the Swampmasher in the cartoons. Not surprising, since it was released in between the Sunbow and Deke series. It did get a little bit of animation for a commercial. The toy cameoed in the comic book series at least once in issue 87, but it was never really featured as far as I could tell. That just leaves the box itself.
And let's start with the name. 2 things about that.
First, why is it 1 word and not 2? Second, I was convinced for years that this thing was called a Swampmasher, not Masher, to the point that I only figured it out while looking closely at the box for this part of the review. So I had to go back and edit the name every time I've said it previously, including in my lovingly created file card.
That was fun.
Anyway, as the name suggests, this is a swamp vehicle, so even though it didn't come with a figure, the choice of driver is obvious. And the box art agrees with me, as Muskrat, the Joe Swamp Specialist, is driving. Hardball is also on the thing, but he really doesn't fit in with the swamp theme. Then again, few other Joes do. The back of the box calls the big-ass gun a laser?
Oh, come on! Does every freaking weapon in G.I. Joe have to be a laser?
I'm beginning to think the only reason the ninjas didn't have laser swords was because George Lucas would tear Hasbro a new arse. Yeah, remember, at the time Hasbro didn't have the Star Wars license. Anyway, the box states the vehicle is a heavy-duty battlecraft. Battlecraft sure is a weird term to use. Makes me think the thing is supposed to be amphibious. And it's out to grind the swamplands dry of Cobra. I don't know why that part is in quote marks. Did the machine itself make that statement?
Is this thing alive?
It also gives a name to the three-wheel thingamajig, saying they are triad bogey wheels that allow the Swampmasher to climb over every obstacle. Lastly, it refers to the weaponry as surface-to-surface missiles. But considering you can tilt them all the way upwards, I'd say you can use them on air targets too. And that was the Swampmasher. All in all, a weird little vehicle I've grown fond of. And I advise anybody who doesn't have it to give it a chance. They're still quite cheap on the secondary market too.
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, don't forget to swamp mash that like button. Yeah, I feel dirty just saying that, but when am I gonna use that pun again?
They did the mash.
They did the monster mash.
The monster mash.